Hi, this is Dave, Fell Running Guide. Welcome to this week's map reading task. This week we're in the Lake District and we have a photograph with two features highlighted on it. We've got the rectangular feature over here to the left. I'll zoom in a little bit on that when we're looking for it. And we've got a feature circled here. So we want to identify those, and also can we work out the precise location that the photo was taken. The map that we're using, well, firstly we're going to look at the Ordnance Survey 1 to 25,000, but then I'll give you a look at the Harvey maps Superwalker 1 to 25,000 and see if we would find one easier than the other. So somewhere on that map is are the features and the photo location. So looking back at the photograph, what can we see? Well, obviously we're looking downhill onto a lake, and we've got a couple of distinctive shaped islands on that lake. We've got this one here, sort of a large oblong shape, and then a smaller one further to the right hand shore. If we look immediately ahead of us, we've got a big, well-maintained dry stone wall here, running left to right, with a gate in it. So that would kind of imply, not necessarily, but kind of imply that we're on either a public right-of-way or a path. And then looking at the actual shape of the ground, if we were to go through this gate and then walk off towards these crags on the right hand side, we'd go very, very steeply downhill and then steeply up the other side. We can't see if there's a stream in the bottom down here, but it would be fairly safe to assume that there was. And then we've got another long dry stone wall going off here underneath the crags, and at this point here you can see that it changes direction and goes down the hill. Let me just zoom in a little bit for that. So here you can see that wall going along and coming down. Now, walls aren't always shown on Ordnance Survey maps or on Harvey maps, but when we get these really well-maintained kind of historical dry stone walls that look like they've been there a long time, then we can much more likely assume that they are marked. So even though we maybe look at the natural shape of the landscape and the natural features first, then it's not unusual to then look at those dry stone walls and find that they are correctly mapped. But what about the feature up here? What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for this craggy ground. Regardless of whether this wall is here or not, we'd expect to see some craggy ground there. And then over on the left hand side, we're actually looking for this ridge that's coming down from the left hand side, this spur coming down. It looks like there's a path in there coming down towards the lake. Okay, can we see any of that on the map? Well, the lake is Derwent water, and we can see straight away that we've got two islands here, St Herbert's and Rampsholm. St Herbert's the larger one with that oval shape, and then Rampsholm being slightly smaller and further right. So that makes sense that we are somewhere down bottom right of the map looking northwestwards onto these. Okay. So we mentioned that we were looking across a steep-sided drop down and up the other side. So we've got a couple of possibilities. Could we be looking across Catgill here, looking across onto these two? Or more likely, what about Barrow Beck, looking across that? Well, that would imply that we are looking over onto this rocky ground here of brown knots, and we can see that we have a wall or a boundary line going along here. So that fits with looking from over here somewhere across Barrowbeck and onto Brown Knots. Where precisely? Well, let's zoom in a little bit. We knew that we were looking for somewhere just above the corner of that wall, and here you can see the contours getting close together, and we get this grey or black marking on the Ordnance Survey map showing that it's steep rocky ground or rocky ground. We know from the contours that it's steep, so we may say somewhere underneath the K of Knots for that. We'll have a look at the Harvey map and see what that says in a moment. What about looking over to the feature on the left hand side of the lake, or on the west side? Well, here we're looking for the base of this spur that comes down here, dropping down into this area. See little kinks in the shoreline. We can even see a little tiny island there. So let me zoom in. So here you can actually see that we've got a path coming down and got some zigzags in it there. And this spur comes down and then hits the wooded area. Here we can see the inlets, and there we can see that small or very small island. So if we look on the map, we can see we've got this spur or ridge coming off north of Cat Bells, dropping down, and at this point here you can see we've got these zigzags in there, and then the woods at the bottom of that ridge. And here, look, we've got that little island, Otterbeeld Island, and Otterbeeld Bay and Derwent Bay with these inlets. So that's that feature. What about the photo location? Well, we've already mentioned this dry stone wall going across us here, but if we go through the gate, you can see that there's another boundary extending down, this time a fence line, and we know that we've got this steep drop into the beck and up the other side on our right. So we've talked about that being Brown Knots, and this is the wall line coming round, and at this point here, again, let me zoom in a little bit. Here you can see we've got a path coming down, and there is the reverse T junction with the fence line extending down and the wall line going across. So we were there. What about the Harvey map? Does it make it any easier to see? Let's have a look at that. So on the Harveys we can see the path coming down. It's not following the public right of way, the public footpath, that point there, and we can see the reverse T. I think on Harvey's it's much more obvious looking over, or the way that the crag is shown there with the crag symbol rather than the Ordnance Survey's rocky ground symbol, and just as easy to spot the change of direction in the path over there on the ridge. So our answers this week: photo taken from that location, looking over to the very tight contours on Brown Knot, and looking over to the zigzags on the path coming off Cat Bells. So not too difficult, I don't think, this week, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Look out for next week's map reading task. Bye for now.